Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at a Husqvarna 346XP chainsaw. The customer complaint is that it needs a new fuel tank. Now, we're not looking at a 346 right here. This is a 350. It's supposed to be a donor saw for the 346. They're pretty similar. We're going to find out just how similar here in a little bit. So we're kind of speeding through this process. We're removing the handle right now. And we want to get this fuel tank off of here. At this point, there is a little rubber bushing right here. Kind of centers that fuel tank inside the chassis. And now the tank should just rock out of here. And it does. Couple of fuel lines going up underneath. Loose anti-vibe spring. And we're going to clean this tank up. And it actually turned out pretty good. It does not even look like the same tank. But I'm going to pressure test it and make sure it's good to go. And it's blowing out the tank vent right now. So I'm going to have to plug up that tank vent. See, I had Mr. Bubbles out there, soapy water, looking for leaks. And it'll turn out that this tank is tight and it's good. It shouldn't leak. There you go. Alright, here's our actual saw that's being repaired. 346XP. You'll see that there's a big hole in the back of the tank here. And the trigger's missing. But it's full of fuel. So it must have been dropped on that end that broke that end off and kind of split the handle open and separated it. And then all the trigger and operator presence lever guts fell out of there. But it didn't leak yet. The way those handles are built with the tank in there, there's a bunch of support structures and the fuel doesn't run all the way right to the end. So this will have to be replaced. So we'll have to strip this one down and get it ready for the tank, the new used tank. Right here's an anti-vibe screw. You can see we're getting a bunch of screws here on the bench. We'll kind of make another pile. Alright, let's get the screws off for the handle. Pay attention to the length of these screws. You'll notice that that second one and that third one I pulled out, they're shorter than the first one that was in the anti-vibe spring. And most importantly, shorter than these three on this side of the handle. The ones that go into the bottom of the tank are short. If you put long ones in there, they can poke through and actually poke into the bottom of the chassis and into the oil tank and create a problem. A big leak kind of problem. Alright, here we're removing that buffer screw again. This one's a special kind of shouldered screw. The bottom portion of it doesn't have any threads, so it doesn't damage that rubber buffer. And you can see it just pops out of there, no big deal. Alright, we got some fuel lines connected to the carburetor we'll have to remove. That one is a tank vent line that goes into the air filter base. And then we have the main fuel feed hose with the filter on the end of it in the tank. And then we have throttle linkage. So there's a little wire piece, it's part of a spring. It kind of locks the linkage in place on the carburetor. And I'm trying to remove that spring. You got to be gentle with it. It's not real durable. And once I get that off to the side, I can grab the linkage and slide it out of the catch that's in the side of the carburetor linkage. And then we pull the whole thing right out. Now the fuel tank is loose. I should be able to... Oh, I guess I forgot a screw. The front anti-vibe screw. It goes through the chain catch. Now the tank is loose. Then we just got to pull those two fuel lines through the bottom of the carburetor tray there. And we'll have to clean up all this schmutz. It's a big mess. Alright. Here's our tank. And you can see we've got a fitting right there for the fuel return line. And we don't have it on the donor tank. A little bit different style tank vent as well. So much for the donor saw, right? We got more saws laying around. This one is, well, it doesn't matter what it is. It's all busted up in the handle and the trigger. So how about this one? We got a 345. Is that one going to work? It does use a primer bulb. So let's strip this one down and take a look. Kind of speed through this. You'll notice that one thing for sure is it uses a different style handle. That's a plastic handle on there. The 346 used a metal handle. Everything else looks really close here, doesn't it? You would think that it would all match up, but taking a look at the vent hose system and the air filter base, this one doesn't have the fitting on it to accept the tank vent hose. So that one's not quite the same either. How about this 346? This one better be the same. It's the same model. Now there are variations among models in a lot of different saws in the Husqvarna lineup. And I imagine most brands, they go through changes over the years. So let's see if this 346 has the same fuel tank we need. You'll notice that I took a Sharpie and wrote the model number on that handle. I got a lot of loose parts laying around right now. So this is the throttle linkage that the trigger pushes against. So you'll notice that some of them have a lot of wear in them. I got 3 of them laying there now, so I'm going to pick the best one when I put this back together. Alright, what do we got? There we go. We got the tank out. We got the fuel lines out. And now we can see that we do have, a lot of schmutz. We do have that fitting that we were looking for on there for the fuel return line right there. So I'll get this all cleaned up. This one didn't clean up bad either. Looks pretty good. You know, the things you go through to try and save the guy a few bucks on parts. But got a lot of parts laying around. We got to keep moving them, you know. Alright, fuel line. I'm going to have to put a new fuel line in this old tank. What am I looking for? Oh, my fishing pole to get this fuel line out of here. Some of you regulars on the channel might notice that that's my old original hook I used for fishing line out of the tank. It disappeared. I don't know where it went. I had to make a new one. Here's our part number for the fuel hose. I call this the pigtail hose, curly hose. We can push it through the tank and then reach in and grab it and pull it through. And once it's through, I'll just flush cut the end and we'll put a new filter on it. And That looks pretty good. And we'll get the cap on there just so we don't end up getting any dirt in there or whatever. Cap's not cooperating very well. Had to reach under there and grab that trigger. That felt pretty good. And I got an obsession with cleaning this thing. I don't know why. Alright. Big sigh. Finally got a tank that's going to work and I can finish this up. That was a lot of monkey business to have to go through just to get the right tank. Alright, I'm just going to reuse this vent hose. This thing isn't under pressure. And it's already kind of bent to the right shape. So the two lines you see now is one is the fuel feed with the filter on it. The other one is the tank vent. They're going to push up into the bottom of this carburetor tray. And I'm just being mindful of where they go through the hole in that tray because, you know, one's going to go towards the air filter base and the other one's going to go to the carburetor. And I just don't need them crisscrossing each other under there. The carb throttle linkage has to pass right near them as well. So we're trying to keep it kind of organized. So we're going to feed, this one's our fuel filter line. We're going to feed it up through the bottom. I'm making this look a lot harder than it really is. But there you go. And that line is the fuel return line from the primer bulb. And it was going on that extra fitting that the other tanks didn't have. So we kind of rock that tank into place. We just roll it in there. And then we can put this rubber bushing in. And now I should have a bunch of those shouldered screws laying here, but I'm having a problem finding one. There's one. So it just doesn't have threads running all the way to the end. Get the bushing centered in there and just run the bolt in. Alright, now our front anti-vibe, we have to run a bolt through a chain catch and then screw that into place. And if your chain catch looks beat up at all, this is a good time to replace it. On the other side we have a longer screw. It goes into the anti-vibe spring. There's plenty of screws on the bench, just grab one. Alright, we got a couple handles to choose from now. We're just going to clean this one up a little bit. So besides the handle, there is a little plastic sort of bushing right there that it goes on the end of the anti-vibe spring. It kind of adapts it to the shape of the handle. So we'll get that located first and run a screw in there. And then as far as that handle goes, there should be 2 longs and 2 shorts left over. Make sure the short ones go in the bottom. That looks good. And then the long ones on this side. Yeah, I don't know if the guy just dropped this thing or ran it over. I kind of got a feeling he dropped it handle down onto the ground. This line is our vent line from the tank vent on the tank where that white vent was, and it pushes onto the side of the air filter base. So as far as fuel lines go, this one I'm cutting the taper off of is the new pigtail one with the filter on the end. it will get pushed onto the carburetor. You can't see that. Neither can I. Got my hand in the way. There's only one fitting on the carburetor that can go to. And there it is. Is it? There, got those two lines on. Now there's a saddle that the air filter base locks into on the bottom of the carburetor tray, one on each side. We got that in place. Just double checking my lines. Everything feels good. So I'm going to pick the best throttle linkage that I had, and we'll kind of route it underneath these fuel lines and push it all the way forward until we can get that plastic bushing into the trigger handle. There's a rectangular shaped opening for it to fit into, and then that black bushing slips down into a couple slots. It's kind of like a dust boot. I lay the end of the throttle linkage into the carburetor linkage and then roll that little spring kind of wire. A skateboard ramp? Yeah. Sweetness.
You jump like just like you go first, I'll follow.
Hold my beer, watch this.
Yeah.
Now, using compressed air on a nylon filter, yeah, you can do it, but when you're done, make sure you'll take a look at it and make sure you didn't wreck it. Because it's really easy to blow a piece of debris through a filter. And this one looks good. It looks like I did alright. We'll just snap the top back on it and set it in place and flip the bail. So it looks like we're getting pretty close here. I pulled the sheath off the bar. That means we're going to try and run it. We'll fill this up with gas and take a quick look at it and make sure there's no leaks. And if it doesn't leak, we're going to try and start it. And if it starts, then that's all I have for you on the Husqvarna 346XP chainsaw that needed a new fuel tank. Thanks for watching. Later.